Have you ever wanted to explore Apex programming, but you're not quite sure where to start? Maybe you've gone through Trailheads, you've done some of the exercises, but you're still not even sure what's the first thing you need to do to actually get going with this. Well, that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Today, we're going to talk about exploring Developer Console, which is the primary tool that you would use as a Salesforce developer. And if you know how to use it, that's definitely a step in the right direction. So I've developed on several platforms outside of Salesforce, and when I first started jumping into Salesforce, it was a little confusing. There were a couple different options. You could use Eclipse at the time, and now VS Code. But once I learned the ins and outs of Developer Console, it actually helped make things easier because, for one, it's always there. You don't need to install any other packages to just get up and running. So if you can, at least get started with Developer Console, it's going to help you progress, any dev tasks that you have in front of you, or any learning if that's the path that you're on. If you're interested in taking steps to change your career from, let's say, Salesforce administrator to Salesforce developer, I encourage you to take my free developer assessment. It's a quiz that will help you navigate, where you are, where you stand with regards to the skills needed to make that shift, and point out some areas that you might need some improvement on, or to bulk up your learning on. You can see the link in the description of this video, as well as on the screen right now. And if you find the information in this video useful, I encourage you to watch it till the end, because I point to more resources that will help you on your journey. All right, well, let's just jump in. So to get to Developer Console, we navigate to the gear icon, like we're going to Setup, but instead of hitting Setup, we go all the way to Developer Console. And it pops up, this is the Developer Console user interface. So first thing we notice is that it's got a menu system up top. I'm not going to go through every little detail because that would make this video way too long, but I'll go through the ones that I find the most useful, and I think you will too. So under File, we have your typical file menu, like you might see on any application. And Open is how we get to the objects that are in our system. Open Resource is very similar. Let me start with Open Resource. Here, if we go to, it'll give us a list of everything in our system that we might want to open up and work on, whether it's an object, a class, a trigger, a visual force page. More often, I use Open, which actually breaks it down for us. We can separate out classes. If I know I need to work on a class, trigger, a visual force page, or a component, it just gives this little delineation. I know lots of developers use Open Resource. I personally use Open because I usually like to segment what it is I'm going to be working on. Either of them works fine, so you find the one that works best for you. Under the debug menu, there's two in here that I use frequently. One is show my current logs only. By default, when we're looking at logs, which we're going to explore in a minute, it's only going to show logs that I've generated. Now, if I'm troubleshooting with a user, I might want to see logs that they are generating, so I would uncheck this to see more logs or a history of logs. These are logs that generated earlier in the day. Open Execute Anonymous window is also useful, and we're going to take a look at that too. The test menu, honestly, I don't use this that frequently. I do other ways to run my unit tests, which we will explore in a different video. And help, if you need some documentation, this is where you go for it. At the bottom of the screen, we have tabs set up. One is the Logs tab. When we're looking at logging, we want to see what's going on there. If we're running unit tests, this tab for tests gives us our test results, which is handy when that's the point that we're working on. Query Editor is when we want to work with SOQL directly, just do some raw SOQL queries. And Problems tells us when we've got an issue with a class or Visualforce page we're working on. For instance, if I open up this hello world and I make let's say I make a typo and I accidentally erase something and save it, it's going to tell me, oh, you've got a problem here and needs to fix it. So we can do that. So the problems window is very important, and it's kind of nice that it highlights, even if we don't have it open, we can see we've got some problems to deal with. So let's take a look at Execute Anonymous. So the Execute Anonymous window is where we can execute some Apex code. You usually do very simple things in here, but it's also pretty useful. One important aspect of it is this checkbox, open log. I always have this checked because whenever I run the code, I want to see what happened in the logs. So let's just do an example. So a simple system.debug will print out the word hello to the console, and let's hit execute. So a couple things we can see here. Here in our logs tab, we can see the log that was generated, but because we told it to automatically open it, it's opened it for us. Now we might, a lot of times in our log files, there's too much stuff to look at once, so we can just filter it on any of these things down here. I did a debug statement, so we will filter it on, we can see the message that I printed out came here. So that's what an Execute Anonymous does. Let's take a look at the SOQL queries that we talked about earlier. Now I know a lot of times when we're looking for information in the system, we can simply do a report, but sometimes we just want it quick and dirty just to bang out a query. So that's what this window is for. So here we've got a query that tells us find the opportunities that were modified this year. Hit this and we'll see the results come up here. So again, a lot of times it's for simple things. Also, I'll use this window to validate if I'm going to do a query in code. I might actually run it in here just to see if it's doing what I want it to do first. A really nice feature of this window is we've got our query history. So we can always look back, and if there's a query we did yesterday, we can just click on it and it'll pull it up, so we don't have to keep retyping things. Very useful feature. And one step you could take right now today is to fire up whatever instance you're working in, probably a sandbox. If it's a sandbox or a developer org, you wouldn't want to do this in production. But I would recommend coming in, grabbing a open Execute Anonymous window, and type out a simple hello, system.debug, open paren, quote, hello, just to see what happens. And another thing, and then once you've got that, do it again. You see it's doing what you want it to do. Do it again and make a slight change. Hello there. And then when we execute it, we can actually see the change we put in place in the Apex actually took place. And that really is, in a way, the backbone of all software development. You take what you've got, you make a change, you see if the change happened, and that helps you with troubleshooting and with building things out and making sure things are working the way you expect. So I hope this was informative for you. And if you want to find more info on the SOQL queries that I was talking about in our query editor, I've got a whole video dedicated to that right here. Feel free to click on that and explore, and I will see you next time.